Hello everyone, good afternoon. We are here to discuss data-driven marketing, a topic perhaps most discussed and people have so much opinion on, most debated one. I'm sure everybody in the room will have a question about how to read data and what to make out of it. So very excited for the panel to join us here. We have a powerhouse which is right here from a very diverse category, from insurance to technology, and even further a diverse business play. So I'm hoping we'll get some perspective into how do the business B2B side of things go, and how does customer facing businesses work when it comes to data really. Before we sort of kickstart our conversation, just want to set a context for the room in terms of data-driven marketing. Marketing is no longer dependent on intuitions, which was an age-old case, right? Today, data is the driving force for the entire omni-channel process, right from customer marketing, targeting, personalizing, and how are people, or how are marketers measuring return on investments also. The way data has been sort of erupted out, it's become such a central part in terms of how marketers are really looking to look at data in terms of real-time behavior. They are analyzing and studying customers in a real-time scenario, and data helps to refine targeting, optimize spends, and improve the overall marketing efficiency. I'm hoping that at the end of the discussion, we will be able to pull out some insights from all of you for marketers and advertisers to really make a little more sense of data and start using it more effectively. The way we're going to run next 20 minutes is really breaking it down into 3 themes. We will start with the first theme, where we are trying to understand data being the backbone of strategy. And first question really for the cross panel, and we'll go one by one to really understand that how do you define the wheel of marketing in your organization, and where does data fit in this construct as a strategy driver? So really, Santosh, we would love to start from you.
Sure, okay. First and foremost, thank you very much to the team who invited me to be here today. If I were to start by just talking about data and give a perspective on how I look at data. So for me, data is a great tool to humanize or personalize when we're looking at customers. So humanize through data, innovate through technology, and then inspire through stories. That's really the mantra that we follow. And if you were to break that down, we can understand what role data plays across all these 3 key elements of the marketing campaign and success journey. In terms of the actual wheel of marketing, if I were to look at, there will be 4 key spokes broadly that we consider within the organization. First is, of course, the awareness, to make sure that we understand our customers and they discover our brand. And we do that through all the industry events that we participate in and all the targeting campaigns that we run. The second is the actual engagement. How do we actually reach out to the customers and engage them with the solutions that we offer? To give you a little bit more perspective, we are a B2B2H, which is business to human kind of services organization. So since we don't have clear products which are attribute defined, but we customize solutions for each and every organization that we work with, we have to do a lot of discovery before we can actually run a campaign. And so a lot of our effort is based on identifying or creating a persona of the customer whom we are targeting and understanding the problem statement before we run a campaign and a solution. And so engagement phase basically is all about identifying the problem, iterating the solution, and making sure we have a very custom solution that addresses the requirement. And the requirement varies across the globe and within the OEM. So if you look at our customer clientele, if you were to just look at the manufacturing engineering services, what is required by a company in India, let's say Hero Motocorp or a Tata Motors, is very different to what's required by BMW, is very different to what's required by Honda in Japan. And so how do we actually make solutions that address their requirements for their technology stack is all done under the engagement phase. And then, of course, is the acquisition phase, which is all about offering them value and making sure we have the intent indicators to tell us the key stakeholders, identifying the promoters, detractors, and having specific strategies to convert them to make sure that we have them in the buying committee and get the purchase order. And last, but in my view, the most important from data perspective is the loyalty aspect, which is once we build a relationship, how do we improve our share of wallet? So how do we continuously listen to customers, get their feedback, and then use that to predict future behavior and then take appropriate action to keep or grow the share of wallet. So that's how we look at the wheel of marketing in Tata Technologies. So in the end, I would just summarize by saying that the key message that drives us or that we try to follow is use data to personalize and humanize the message, the campaign, and use technology to innovate how you reach out to them, and then use the stories to inspire and build relationships.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rathin Lahiri. I head marketing for SBI General Insurance. We are a subsidiary of SBI Bank. We are in the general insurance space, which covers everything from health insurance to motor insurance to corporate insurance to agri to travel, lots and lots of categories. If I look at the wheel of marketing in an organization like ours, one is the organization itself has a very, very ambitious and aggressive mission. So one of our goals is to be one of the leading players in this space and ensure insurance for all, which translates into simple products, affordable products, customization at mass, technology delivered simply at mass, multilingual marketing, all of that stuff. So in terms of the wheel of marketing, I think one is that we need to cater to the whole length and breadth of India. So even if I look at Meghalaya as an example, we are actually localizing in 2 or 3 languages. So there is a lot of localization and segmentation, customization which happens. That's one. The second part is we are catering to very, very different types of consumers. So there are consumers who are digital only, and we cater to them through our app, our website, partners like PhonePe, Policy Bazaar, and so on. But we equally have enough and possibly more volume of customers who are first time entering this space. They don't really understand what is insurance. So there a lot of hand-holding has to be required. A lot of basic education, basic communication has to be required. So all I'm getting out of all of this is that one, that the marketing effort itself is highly segmented and targeted and differentiated for different segments of customers. For the corporate segments, we do separate stuff. We have a large agent channel. For them, we work very, very separately. For these different customer segments, we run very, very different marketing programs. But at the root of it all, you come down to, how is marketing, measurable? How are you adding to the top line? How are you kind of reducing friction? How are you improving the user journey? How you're able to cut down acquisition costs, improve retention, and so on and so forth. And in that measurability, the source of it is data, right? So for example, when we do our planning, any financial services and insurance is a long-term business. So a customer comes in, but you would like him to stay for the next 15, 20, 30 years. So therefore, retention of the customers is very, very important. And we begin with that what's our retention rate now? How do we move it up a couple of percentage points? How do we retain the customers we would like to retain? And how do we give the appropriate pricing for customers who are trying to game the system? All of which is again data-led. The average median age of India is 28. So we are a very young country. At 28, you are hardly 3-4 years into your working career. You're from 30 to 40s when you're getting into asset building. You get married, you get a car, you need car insurance. You migrate to a bigger car. You from a rented house, you move to a house. So for a financial services company, the massive opportunity is once you build a trust, once you build a good customer relationship, there are multiple opportunities to cross-sell and upsell. So, that again is one big area.
One is that, and also the retention, like you're saying,
Yeah.
is a whole life cycle of the customer.
That's
So
right.
you acquire them at an
Yeah.
age, but there are multiple milestones, and
Yeah.
you will be evolving, and your communication or the way you're reaching out to them or the data that you're getting is also going to be evolving. So,
Yeah.
so that's a key piece.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
Before I go into that, yes, we are talking about data, but I like to make one point very, I think, I'm a firm believer in that. Ultimately, we are humans selling to humans.
exactly.
I think that is the most critical part. Yes, data is there. Yes, analytics is there. Yes, we need to be completely data driven, and yes, we need to have logic behind everything we do. But contrary to a little slightly digression, what you are saying earlier is intuition plays a huge role still. Because agar intuition is not there, the creativity goes for a toss, and then ultimately everything is this way or that way. So that is what I pointed to make. Now coming back to your question on the flywheel, we have talked about customers, and I don't want to go into too much details of that. But there is one element that we all across industries don't talk about. And so therefore, let me start from the life insurance industry typically, when a life insurance is being bought, in 90% of the cases, and I'm giving industry figures, it is not just us, between the customer and the insurer, there is a third party, which is an intermediary. That intermediary could be an insurance agent, that intermediary could be a bank RM, that intermediary could be an employee of a broking firm, that intermediary could be an employee of the life insurance organization itself. But there is somebody in between. As it is important to acquire and retain the customers, it is equally and probably, and I'm talking about life insurance, sometimes it becomes more important to acquire and retain the distributor who's selling the insurance, because 90% of the sales happen through a distributor. And why does the sale happen through a distributor? Very broad three reasons. Our products are perceived to be complex, and I'm using the word perceived to be. They are not complex, but they are perceived to be complex. Second is, everybody believes कि I don't need life insurance. मुझे कुछ नहीं होगा, जो भी होगा मेरे बगल वाले को होगा, किसी और को होगा, मुझे कुछ नहीं होगा. So that feeling of invincibility, even after COVID, shows us how vulnerable we are. That feeling is still कि मुझे कुछ नहीं होगा. And third is, and that is the industry's own doing, is inherent mistrust. Because अगर आपके सामने कोई इंश्योरेंस एजेंट आज बैठा है, आपके मन में सबसे पहले जो एंटीना खड़ा हुआ है कि ये मुझे कुछ चिपकाने वाला है क्या? Is he going to sell or mis-sell a product to me? And nothing wrong, because industry has done it in past. It doesn't do that anymore. But it has happened in past. You club these three factors put together, which is complexity, which is invincibility, and which is mistrust. The net SAR is you don't want to buy life insurance. So I am into a business where I'm selling you a product which you do not want to buy. One. Second, I am selling you a product in which what I am giving you, I am taking a huge amount of money from you. A typical average ticket size in life insurance is upwards of 1 lakh rupees. And you commit for at least 10 years. So आप अगले 10 साल में 10 लाख रुपए देने वाले हो. Okay, and what I am giving you, I am giving you a promise. There is no product. I am giving you a promise. What is that promise? That in case you are not there, I am going to take care of your family. Financial part of it. So ultimately, I am asking you to give me a huge amount of money, backed by a promise, which I hope that which you don't trust that I will keep. What you are buying, you do not understand.
So it's a
And what
bad,
you are
yeah.
buying is you do not want to buy. So therefore, selling insurance and life insurance is very difficult, and therefore the role of intermediary is very important. The point I was trying to make is, in addition to points that has been discussed, is it is equally important to use your data analytics to understand this person. Because आज अगर एक customer के पास choice है to pick up any of the 26 life insurance companies that operate in India, आज distributor के पास भी वही choice है. The distributor can choose to sell any of the 26 life insurance companies that the distributor wants. So me as a life insurance company, it is very important that I retain this person and acquire more of these persons. Because if distribution is in place, business will happen. If my brand is very strong and distribution is not there, my business is going to fall flat. So we do a lot of work on mining the data for these set of, I am calling them my customers, because it is important for my business, in addition to what has been discussed.
Great, great. Abhishek, I truly agree to the one point that you said at the start of your conversation, that it's great to have logic, but a blend of magic is what really moves things, and we will touch upon it a little later into the conversation. We're really excited for that particular one there. I'll just want to pick your brains into the next sort of theme here in terms of operationalizing this whole data, because data itself can be really, really overwhelming. And in organizations, data exists in many departments, and it's possible for data to be there in silos. Now, how do you make sense of it? How do you put data to use from one construct to another so that it follows through a journey cycle and give you what really is your effective marketing communication, or the things that we were talking about, which is really the human insight or things that will lead emotions? How do you do that?
Okay. From a usage of data, I actually take it very close in terms, if I have to give an analogy now, it is kind of an interrogation. I can make the person I'm interrogating speak anything I want, depending on number one, what I ask, and number two is how I'm asking. The same thing, I can get different reasons. So that's the beauty, or probably that's the difficulty of working with data. If I give another analogy, it's like market research. Market research, the output is already decided by the kind of questions you are asking. If you're asking a particular question, and if you have an output in mind, you will frame your questions accordingly. Similarly is with data. If you start approaching data with a pre-hypothesis in mind, it is not going to work. So therefore, look at data as solving a business problem for you. And therefore, and coming back to defining of a problem is extremely critical. Let me give you an example. Now, in our business, there's something called as expenses of management. It's a EOM, it is called. All insurance companies try to reduce their EOM. As a marketer, probably in normal scenario, would not be bothered about what is expenses of management. I don't want to be bothered. But expense of management is extremely important for profitability of company. So as a marketer, I need to understand what drives EOM for my business. What drives EOM for my business is number one, retention, as you were talking about, what we call as persistency. Customer buys our product for 10 years. When we acquire a customer, we front end all our costs. So that means the first year that the customer has paid the premium, I've actually made a loss for that customer in acquiring that customer, in hoping that this customer will stay with me for a period of 10 years. Over the period of 10 years, then customer will pay me, I'll make my money. If the customer decides to exit after second or third year, I actually have lost money. So it is important for me to retain these customers, which we call as persistency. So persistency drives EOM. Number two is, I will make money if customer buys a longer period product, which we call as payment time. So if a customer is buying longer payment tenures from me, instead of 5 years, the customer is buying a product for 10 years, I'll make more money, or my EOM will be lower. So as a marketing person, what is my working is to ensure, number one, to drive the persistency, and number two is how do I ensure that the customers buys for a longer period of tenure. Once I have that problem very clearly defined for me, then I will work with data. What kind of customers are likely to stay with me? What kind of customers, why are the reasons customer are exiting? Therefore, a lot of data will come in. And then the models start kicking in. Our models, our analytics models which work will tell us that this set of customers are likely to attrite very quickly. So we start tailoring our communication to those set of customers differently. So what happens is, data doesn't help you only acquiring new customers or targeting them to get them into the fold. A marketer needs to work with data keeping business objectives in mind whether it could be retaining the customers, whether it was acquiring the customers, whether it is retaining the customers, whether it is, retaining the distributors or acquiring the distributors, and a lot of other things. So that's how you, so the point again I'm trying to make is define your problems very clearly. What is the problem that you are trying to solve? Data is not the solution. Defining the problem is actually the first part of the solution.
Great one. So the key to mind data is really with identifying and putting out your marketing objectives upfront.
Company objectives which define marketing objectives.
Yes, please, Rathin.
So let me just give you 3-4 examples of actually how we use data. So let's start with, let's say, the brand itself, right? At a macro level, let's say there would be 3-4 large brands, SBI and ICICI, HDFC. All of them would have almost close to 100% awareness in, in at least in the metros. Yes. But then it's a function of how do you define your customer segment, right? And like I said, for us, our goal, we have a base of around 20 crore odd customers. Our goal is to try and push that as high as we can and go as deeper as we can. And still in a lot of rural areas, we find that, the awareness of insurance itself is not there. Forget. So they may know SBI, they know it's a bank, they may not know it's a bank. They know very, very, very basic stuff. So for a brand itself, we do a brand tracker where we look at, broadly awareness scores, consideration scores, preference scores, and then recommendation scores. A brand like ours would rank automatically high on awareness, okay, and would automatically kind of rank high on consideration also. The drop-off between awareness to consideration is very small, right? So all our efforts are actually to push on preference and push on recommendation. What that means is that how do you get to preference? You need to create stuff, as everybody said, people are human. You need to create content which is, very emotionally engaging. At the end of the day, and this is my learning across industries and across being in corporate jobs also, that, people are emotional, right? We react emotionally. So even we have a large corporate business, even in a corporate business, it's not that the lowest price always wins. It's the lowest price with the best relationship which wins. Coming back, so therefore from the brand part, we work, we measure all of these. We measure it across our major metros and then work on where the improvement areas are. The second part, which is a very simple tool, which is, available on Google, which anybody can use, whatever the size of the organization, and it doesn't really cost much money, is actually the Net Promoter Score, or NPS, right? So we do this across, we have a composite score, which is actually tracked and measured by the board, but we have NPS scores for each of the businesses, right? And we literally do, every 15 days, we have a call with each of the businesses to see how can they improve the processes and the customer experience so that we move to a better score.
You're moving with a lot of agility
So agility is one, but I think the main thing is to figure out, because let's say something like health insurance is a very involved product. Something like travel insurance is a very transactional product. What you need to do well in travel insurance is have a very clean user interface, have simple stuff, because the person has already bought a ticket, he needs it for his visa or whatever. That's important. At best, he needs to know that in those countries, how many hospitals are covered, right? So while in motor insurance, it could be something else itself, right? So therefore, all I'm saying is that in each of our businesses, what we try and do is there are tools available for solving all of these problems and measuring it. You have to take each tool, you have to understand where you are and set a benchmark of how you can kind of improve, and then work with various stakeholders in the company. It is not the marketing team's job. They might just be the person, kind of accumulating the data, but they need to ultimately work with the business owners, with the sales guy, who's actually closing the transaction, with the agent to see whether L&D needs to get involved, to educate all of them in terms of, if there is mis-selling happening or if there is not enough information. So, so these are just a couple of kind of examples.
Sure.
The third one, which I think is important in any financial services category, is people buy into mother brands, right? I will buy into a brand, and then ideally I will keep buying into those brands. I'll buy their mutual funds, I'll buy their life insurance, take their credit card. That's how it works. If you look at any of your, and has been led by a bank for whatever reason. And therefore retention is extremely important. Now, in an industry like, general insurance, if you take a pool of, look at your batchmates in school and so on, you might be 30 years old, 40 years old, you'll find that, 10% people are super fit, 10% people are absolutely unfit. So even for the same demographic, the quality of someone's life could be very, very different. And therefore the pricing of that could be very, very different, and so on. And therefore, again, we look at that data to reprice through the journey. In motor insurance, I think we're moving towards pay as you go, which has already come on board, and over the next few years, that's going to kind of, so you will determine your price. Your behavior will determine your price, and that will be individual. So I think today technology allows us to use data, to solve business problems.
True.
To solve business problems, it's a question of taking one small piece at a time and then proceeding on it.
Benchmark and setting milestones is what you're saying. So right from defining problems to setting benchmark. I'm now going to move into the third theme, really picking on from what Santosh, you said at the start of the conversation, is you really innovate and then you inspire with the human side of things. Rathin, you spoke about the emotional stories, and Abhishek, you did touch upon intuition playing a very, very important role here. So shifting focus to human connecting stories that's backed by insight or human insight, which could be driven by data, but you're finally carving out a human insight. And in the process of brand building or in your marketing positioning or brand propositions, storytelling becomes a very, very important part. How do you ensure that you build out the right storytelling and connect with your audiences while being grounded in an insight which is driven by data? So Santosh, I would like to start with you.
Sure. I think storytelling for B2B is very interesting, isn't it? And when we always think about how do we tell the story to the CTO, CIO, and we keep wondering whether who's the audience, because it's not easy. And the segmentation or the psychographics differ so much across geographies, across industries. But I'll share with you our thought process and whatever limited success we've got. So there are two examples that I'd like to share. One is the brand stories that we tell for employees. In our industry, talent is a key driver for growth. Great talent is not easily available. And so we need to make sure that we build an employer brand that everybody wants to come and work with. And a lot of data we use is essentially valuable for us to build that employer brand. So if you look at the talent that we attract as an organization, many of them come from tier 1. We are obviously looking for engineering talent, software talent, people who have done their BTech, B. And if you were to look at the kind of people that we've been hiring and their demographic and psychographic, we actually create a personality. What would that person look like from different parts of geographies? And then identify what their stories typically would be. So first we started looking at people internally, what background they came from, what inspired them. And then we started, and you can Google and see, you can learn about this stories, engineering better careers. And through that campaign, actually we told our story not just about people and what platform we provide them to learn and grow, but also the kind of innovations that we can do and how they can build their career. And once we run the campaign, we started tracking what is it that we are getting as a response from the campaign, which areas or colleges we are getting CVs from, how many people are applying on our website, and what is their joining ratio, and use that to actually tune the campaign over a period of time. We have been running this for 2 years, and over the last 2 years, I think we've got significant success in our joining ratios, in the number of applications we get from the Cat A colleges, which is what our campaign objectives were. But there were a lot of underlying data that actually gave us the confidence on the campaign that we ran. From the perspective of customers and specifically the human part of it, I think the key attribute that we look at, and we are a human brand actually, we call Tata Technologies a human brand, is what impact we deliver for the human beings that actually develop the product or use the product. I think that's the key essence that we try to get in all our brand messaging and communication. I will share one example just so that all of us can relate to it. We also serve a segment called construction heavy machinery. The Caterpillars and the Tata Hitachis of the world or John Deere's, they create excavators which are used for manufacturing or digging and mining and creating sites, right? Now, these are equipments which are heavy load taking. So they are designed to be rough and tough, and their key USPs, how efficient and productive they are, how much load bearing capacity they are, how strong they are, and how reliable they are. And we were working for one of our clients where they asked us to re-engineer the product. They wanted to launch the product in India, and they wanted us to re-engineer the product to be more cost efficient and to meet the requirements of the key businesses that purchase that product. Now, all of that is the product side of it, and obviously benchmarking is easy to look at the attributes, efficiency, and all of that. But the key learning for us, which we took to the client, was that why don't you think about the guy who will use that product in the heat of the sun throughout the day? Why don't you think about the cabin or the interior? Because nobody thinks about the cabin or interior of that product, and that's really not what they think about, because they think that it has to be rough, so it could be just if you have a place to sit and a steering, that's good enough. And we actually reimagined the cabin for that particular device, and our story was an excavator for an all-nighter. That's the campaign that we run. So we designed it to be an all-nighter, which means you could be comfortable and run it day and night, and it could meet all your requirements. It could protect you from heat and cold, and it will help you deliver the requirement. And that campaign was quite successful, and of course, the product is quite successful. We did it about 3 years back, and it's in our website, the story you can go and check as well. But the key message for us is that in most of the targeting campaigns, it's important to remember whether you are actually reaching out to the end user or the CXO is what defines success for them. And if you are able to, through our marketing campaign, tell the story of success that matters to them, I think the job is much easier for us to
what
deliver
defines
message.
success for your customer is how you tailor, is what we heard. Thank you for that. Rathin, we would love to hear from you.
So I just say 2 quick points. I think first is that if you look at any traditional digital marketing, it's done on a platform like Google, Meta, what have you, right? And you are one of the players in the industry. So even however good your digital marketing, you are not really going to be making too much profits on the transaction, because these guys are going to keep moving the prices up. And therefore, you need to supplement even the best digital marketing with organic or offline marketing or brand building, which is able to drive organic traffic. And that number ranges from 40 to 60%. You cannot do 100% digital marketing and be profitable. That's one. The second point is, and therefore you need the brand. The second point is, if you look at financial services, insurance specifically, the single biggest thing that consumers want is trust. Yes. Right? Now, to me, trust, how do you kind of communicate trust? It has to be through an emotional story. It has to be through storytelling. It has to be through capturing some insight from a consumer's life and bringing it to life and amplifying it and so on. And therefore, I think at the end of the day, in marketing, you have to be able to ultimately connect with the consumer. To connect with the consumer, it's easier and actually cheaper to connect emotionally, and then supplement it with a whole lot of functional attributes in terms of.
So you're saying performance marketing will get you 60% there on ROI. The acceleration will really happen when you connect with emotions. So yeah, a great one there.
So I'll explain with an example. It is all about humanizing insights. Everybody understands term insurance? term insurance, I'll explain a very simple product. You pay a certain amount of premium, which is very low, to an insurer. And insurer agrees that in case there is a death of the policy holder, a substantial amount of money would be given to the nominee. In case the policy holder survives the full term, there is nothing that comes back. Okay, and therefore the premiums are low, and therefore the payout is very huge. That's a term insurance. That's the product. Now what we did is, we understood there's a problem. Ultimately, as I said, beginning, humans selling to humans. Now humans are of different kinds, and we deal at psychographic levels. So we led a huge exercise to understand these people, all the consumers, and then I'm not going too much in interest of time, but ultimately through research, which was huge data backed, we decided that there are basically 4 types of humans in our industry or our target segment. Now मैं इस इंसाइट का कुछ नहीं कर सकता जब तक कि मेरा डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर इस इंसाइट को लेके कस्टमर के पास नहीं जाए या यूज करे उसको. So what we did was, we said these 4 kinds of human, I need to make my distributor understand this rather than the customer understand this. So we created a persona, which persona is in the form of, and we called it safari, it's in the form of animals. Lion, elephant, deer and hawk. And each persona has a type of characters. I'll just give you an example. Lion is a king-like thing. I am king of the jungle, so that person extremely feels very important about himself or herself. That's the lion. Deer at the same time is very cautious. हर बार इधर-उधर देखता रहता है. So that deer person is very underconfident. You got the gist? So my pitch, and I'm going to tell you right now, same product, term insurance. I train my salespeople and tell them that if you are going and meeting a deer customer, a customer who behaves like a deer, आपको इस कस्टमर को अश्योर करना है कि दिस इज द राइट प्रोडक्ट. तो पिच विल बी, प्रोडक्ट तो वही है सर, चिंता मत करिए, प्रोडक्ट अच्छा है, कंपनी अच्छी है, अगर कुछ हुआ तो फैमिली को पैसा मिलेगा, कंपनी का क्लेम सेटलमेंट रेशो, आप बिल्कुल डिसीजन ठीक ले रहे हैं सर, चिंता मत करिए, मैं बैठा हूँ. As compared to, I'm selling the same product to a lion. सर ये प्रोडक्ट है, आप तो हमेशा अच्छा डिसीजन लेते हैं, या आपका घर देखिए कितना अच्छा है सर, ये अच्छा है, आपने हमेशा लाइफ में करेक्ट डिसीजंस लिए हैं सर, इसीलिए ये भी करेक्ट डिसीजन है, आपका डिसीजन है सर और आप हमेशा सही हैं. सेम प्रोडक्ट आई एम सेलिंग टू डू डिफरेंट, एंड देयर आर 4 काइंड्स ऑफ दीज कस्टमर्स. अगेन इंटरेस्ट, आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू दिस मच इनटू डिटेल. अब ये तो हो गया, मैंने अपने सेल्स गाय को 4 पिच दे दिए कि अगर तू डियर से मिलने जा रहा है तो ऐसे, हॉक से मिलने जा रहा है तो ऐसे. द नेक्स्ट चैलेंज मेरा सेलर मुझसे पूछेगा मैं पहचानूंगा कैसे, अगर मैं नेहा से पहली बार मिलने जा रहा हूँ आज, हाउ डू आई नो नेहा इज अ डियर, नेहा इज अ लायन, नेहा इज अ हॉक और नेहा इज एन एलिफेंट, आई डोंट नो. I said, yes, that's a problem. Again, where data helps us. Using data mining, we created 4 questions. That is it. Ask these 4 questions to Neha. Just these 4 questions. It's a tool that is available to you on your devices. Ask these 4 questions. Input the answer because there's a multiple choice. There's only one answer that Neha can choose. The moment Neha gives the answer, in these 4 questions, you will know what kind of customer Neha is. So you know Neha is a lion. This is the pitch for term insurance for Neha. Pitch like this. Do not pitch like a deer, because if you pitch like a deer, Neha will not buy your product. That is how data, you use data, you humanize it, and then you give tools to the distributor. Problem होता है हम लोगों का, and marketers are guilty of it. हम data लेकर आते हैं, humanize करते हैं, हम उसको tools में convert नहीं करते. The tools need to be available to the person who is selling or person who is consuming. What I would request you is, I'm not doing a product pitch over here. Just go to our website, edelweisslife.in, and take this test. There's a financial personality test. These are the 4 questions that our sellers use in finding out the personality. See what your personality is. पर उसमें बस एक caveat है, वो आपसे आपका phone number पूछेगा. वो मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता उसका, that was a business decision, but yes. उसके बाद अगर मेरे कॉल सेंटर से फोन आएगा, आई कैन नॉट हेल्प इट. सो टेक योर कॉल वेदर यू वांट टू टेक दैट टेस्ट और नॉट, बट प्लीज डोंट ब्लेम मी इफ द कॉल कम्स टू यू आफ्टर दैट. Okay, but it's an interesting thing, and
So
we are really finding a success with this.
that's so insightful. So like I'm sure it's a takeaway for all of us. You study the behavior of your cohorts, you humanize them, you develop robust solutions and executions basis those cohort and segmenting. Great example there. There's one bit even I would like to share because for advertisers here, what moves us really is that how do we make connecting stories, and we often take briefs with heap and lots of datas and cohorts. But we want to say those stories which will move culture. I would like to share an example. In 2018, when the FIFA World Cup campaign was being developed, there was a lot of data, right? And cohort segmentation and all of that, social listening and sentiment analysis told us that people in India there's peaking interest in football that's happening. And people are really behaving in a certain way. So if you go to Kolkata, half of the city is divided into Argentina and Brazil. Their country or their city or the region is not playing that, but the emotions were really high. And of course, data-based cohort performance marketing was developed, like Rathin, you were saying. So a lot of piece was developed to say there were memes and people were reacting to those memes with a lot of outrageous behavior if the teams were losing, and like really victorious when the teams were winning. So it was all great, but performance could take you only till that 60% ROI that you were speaking of. The acceleration really happened when Sony Live came with a campaign saying, Meri dusri country. It connected at a human level and gave them a reason, and that's when cultural shifts happened, the brand matrix went in, brand equity results went in, all of that. At the heart of it, everything that the human insight of the campaign talked about was grounded and devised from data, because a lot of data analysis were done. So having math of things is great, but acceleration really happens when you put, the connecting pieces together. We are running out of time. I would like to take one quick tip from each one of you for the marketers here and advertisers in the room. People who are starting to work with data, they often feel very overwhelmed with the kind of data. What is that one tip that they could start with and start making sense of data? So very quick ones from you. Yeah.
And this will not be for anybody working data, for anybody who is starting. धंधे को समझो, बिजनेस कहाँ से आता है, what drives sales, what drives P&L of the company. If you understand धंधा, you will understand any kind of data and any kind of solution. हम लोग ना बहुत हवा में घूमने लगते हैं कि ये करो वो करो, बहुत सिंपल है. प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस, कौन प्रॉफिट दे रहा है, कौन मुझे टॉप लाइन दे रहा है, और मेरी खर्चा कहाँ हो रहा है जिससे मेरी बॉटम लाइन है, ये समझ जाओ, you will do well.
Thank you for that, Rathin.
So it would be a variation of this. I think each one of us in our jobs, right, figure out whatever the job it is, social media marketing, trade marketing, something else, sales, CRM, जो भी हो, figure out आप क्या कर रहे हो and one problem that you can solve. Just take that one problem which has been occurring, which is perceived that it is there, and figure out how to solve it. Go on Google, there will be enough tools and techniques which are there. Start small, take a small batch, do some experiments, go to your boss, you'll get the resources, right? I think that's
a great one, Rathin. Thank you. Santosh?
Yeah, I think, mine is an extension of what Rathin just said. So from my perspective in data, I think less is more. So while, a lot of the organizations talk about data across customer value chain and 360 and all of that, personally for me and in our organization, what we look at is which is that one or two data points that really matter. And so the depth of understanding of data that you have is more important than breadth of data. So, as Rathin suggested, first identify which problem you're trying to solve. In different roles, we have different problems to solve. And which data will give you the insight in helping solve that problem. I mean, if you're looking at running a campaign, it's the engagement matrix. If you're running a lead gen campaign, it could be the click-through rate and the leads, whatever be it. But identify one or two KPIs and then track the KPIs across their cycle and then try to infer insights or data. I think you will achieve the success that you want and you'll really get insights that work together. If you try to manage too much data, you will get conflicting signals from them and you will feel overwhelmed by the magnanimity of the challenge. So just start with few data points and look at which data gives you the maximum insights for the challenges that you're solving. I think that should be enough to make a great start, and then keep building on that.
Thank you, Santosh. Thank you. Thank you, dear panel audiences. I hope that we all have got a little peek into how to read data and how to make sense of it. Finally, it's all about, like Abhishek said, human to human. It's human selling to human. And quick summaries of what Rathin said about performance marketing will take you to a certain level. The acceleration really happens when you go forward with human connecting stories, and what Santosh you spoke about is innovate to inspire with human stories. So really thank you.